Hi, folks. My name is Jan. I am with the Gaian Fairy Congress, and every month we have a workshop that is focusing on how do we work with the spirits of nature, which can be, plants and weather spirits and fairies and Sasquatches. And this month, or in July, we're going to be working with ancestors. My goal is to find the best person that I can to teach on these different topics. Sometimes I teach, and this time it's like Summer Starr is going to be doing a workshop on the July 18th, Ancestral Support for Times of Change, an introduction to ancestral lineage healing. And then after that, we're going to be doing a 4-part series, a couple of different 4-part series. Hold on a moment here. Summer is a certified practitioner with ancestral medicine, Daniel Four's approach to ancestral healing, as well as she's done advanced shamanic trainings with Betsy Bergstrom and Sandra Ingerman. Summer, thank you so much for joining us. So this is just a little bit kind of intro to the class and intro to the July 18th class, and then a little intro to the 4-part series. Mm-hmm. Last year, Summer did a workshop on ancestors and ancestral hybridity, like what do you do when one of your ancestors is not quite human? And it was a really brilliant, I thought it was like, this is a bit edgy. People loved it. And you're an edgewalker. I'm an edgewalker.
Oh, yeah.
So. But at that time, it was like, oh, we need to go back. Like, Summer is really good at teaching this material. Let's go back and not back, but let's do a whole intro, ancestral lineage healing. I mean, it is so needed right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Summer, how did you get involved with this? With this meaning ancestral lineage healing?
Yeah, the plants brought me there. I was working with Diana Pepper, Tree Frog Farm, doing flower essence work, and then started taking some herbalism classes. And one of my herbalism teachers offered an ancestral class, and it just like boom opened up my world when I started looking into my own ancestry and what needed to be healed there. And yeah, it was really interesting because I later talked to that mentor and she's like, oh, yeah, the plants remember their ancestry really well. And so they sometimes, encourage people to do the same. So, um, and, I was in this path of really exploring who I was as a healer. And I found out that my ancestors were kind of blocking some of those gifts from fully emerging because they needed some healing themselves. And so it really allowed me to also grow into my gifts by doing that ancestral tending. So yeah.
Okay, that's an important part. Like, what happens when your ancestors are just by default, like they're blocking you because you are queer, because you're a witch, because you're doing things differently, because you talk to plants and maybe they didn't quite know how to do that. Mm-hmm. Could you say something about that? Well, okay, so you're teaching ancestral support for times of change on July 18th. I'm going to put all the links below in the comment section, tickets, etc. Could you what are you going to be covering in that? That's from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on July 18th. Yeah. We have these weird time zones because we're getting a lot of people in from England, from New Zealand, we're going international. Could you say something about that class on the 18th?
Yeah. So, the general idea is we're in this moment of profound change. I mean, we're always in a moment of profound change, but I'm just seeing it, at least personally, but in a lot of people's lives right now. And as much as I was mentioning, ancestral blockages, there's also huge ancestral insight and support for what it means to be human during a lot of change, because they lived through migrations and cultural upheavals and environmental changes and all that sort of stuff. And so this workshop is kind of looking at, like, what are the things that the ancestors who are well can offer us in terms of support during this moment of change. Um, and we'll talk a little bit about the basics of, connecting with wellness in our ancestors, so that we're not just inviting more ghosty interference, but we're actually going to health, in that support. And then we'll actually go through a guided experiential practice of meeting a well ancestor who may have some advice for how we navigate some, of our own personal challenges with the collective change or the personal change that's happening right now. So, yeah.
Okay, and can anybody sign up? Like, I know in your background, you've got some advanced shamanic training. Can somebody who is not, they don't know what shamanism is, they don't know, can they show up? Is this
Oh,
approachable to
yes.
anybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is very approachable. We talk about ritual safety um, in the class, and I mean, years ago, my mom joined one of these classes, and she's, a retired first grade teacher with no shamanic training whatsoever, and she loved it. She had a great experience. So, yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so we've got the hour and a half workshop on July 18th. That'll give you a good introduction to, like, how do you work with your ancestors, and what happens when your ancestors are doing too well. I mean, not they're not doing too well. How do you work with that? There's a lot that comes in with ancestors. So we're
Mhm.
doing a 4-part series. I'll put the dates below. Could you say something about the 4-part series? I'm reading your descriptions, and it's really well written, and it was like, this is why Summer's leading the ancestor. this is why this is why I hired you to do this, because it's like, this is
Yeah.
good. Could you say something about the 4-part series, the different parts?
Yeah. So the class is going to be, the just standalone class is going to be more about connecting to ancestral health for support. The 4-part series will be a little bit more about how do we tend our ancestral roots. So there will be a little bit more component of the, perhaps some healing that needs to happen, and sort of the way that that's approached through ancestral medicine. There's many ways to do ancestral healing, but the way that I'm trained is working with well guides to initiate a process of healing. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But really, part of the 4-part series is this question of, how can we bring greater harmony between what I see as like 3 essential relationships: our connection to our own spirit and soul, like our own unique soul signature, and then our connection to the ancestors themselves, and then also our connection to place, which the ancestors have really brilliant knowledge about how they were connected to their places. And it may be a different place, but some of the same protocols or ways of approaching that can be really useful to learn from them. Like, how did they honor spirits of place? How did they honor the waters? How did they, do that tending of relationship? Um, and and really, the idea behind that is that I see in my client work things really coming into harmonization and alignment between our soul, our ancestors, and our relationship to place. Like, unlocks a level of like resiliency and ability to adapt and respond to change in a more fluid way and not be so ungrounded by change. It just gives us this more solid base. Um, so we're going to be approaching those kinds of things from an ancestral lens. Like, how do our ancestors really appreciate and harmonize with our own soul signature so that they're not standing in the way of who we are beautifully meant to be in the world? And how are we really in harmony with the ancestors themselves? And then how can they show us how to be in harmony with our place and all the beautiful beyond human beings? So, yeah.
Well, it was interesting. So, one of the first people who signed up is a Native American friend of mine.
Oh, beautiful.
And I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And then the other night, when we were talking about this, I tend to do a lot of my work at night. I mean, I get these brilliant ideas. And at 4 in the morning, I wake up and I'm like, oh, we need to do an LGBTQ series. And then, so can you say something about, I was just kind of tickled that a Native person would, like, they were like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're gonna have to see if they show up, and and the finance part of this is we are selling tickets. I mean, to pay for this, but let's not have that be an issue. So we're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna make sure that everybody who wants to be part of this can be
Mhm.
part of this.
Yes.
So
Yes, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, again, like I say, there are so many ways to do ancestral work, and I think there's this incredible wealth of knowledge and beauty from native traditions about that work. So much so that, like, part of the ancestral lineage healing process, the longer process, we won't get to all of that in the 4-part series, but if you look up Daniel Four's work, you can kind of see the larger process. And he actually has a book about it, as well as online courses and things like that. But one of the processes is, once things are healed, you kind of become the living face of your lineages. And there's this sense that our consciousness is not just our own individual, but we are also the healthy attributes of our people. And I live in the Pacific Northwest right now. The Lakhtamish or Lummi Nation and Nooksack nations are close by, and there are some folks that I meet I used to do nonprofit work here locally, and I'm just like, I am not just talking to you, but I'm talking to your people right now. And I think that there's a way in which when we start to recognize that in ourselves and each other and honor that, there's a lot of potential for cultural healing too, in that as well. So this work it's really profound, and it really profoundly addresses a lot of the challenges of our moment of a lot of change. Uh so yeah, I love that. That there's some interest there.
Yeah, can you, so you said profound change, that this can, I'm always stunned a little bit. So I grew up in Scandinavia, and American culture can be really interesting. I mean, look at what we're going through right now. It's like, Black Lives Matter. It's like, oh, we need to do ancestor work. There's so many times where this, like, look at the Mideast, we need to do ancestor work, but we also need to do it for our own healing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a queer man, and when I talk to my ancestors and I introduce myself and I told them that my queerness is part of who I am and my witchiness is part of who I am, to a very conservative military ancestral group, they got it.
Mm.
they got it, and things shifted around, and now I can feel my ancestors like behind me, like I've got their
Yeah.
support. That was, and I'm just saying that because I think I haven't heard people describe that, like, wow, you get
Mm.
your ancestral support. Like I can feel
Hmm.
these military guys behind me, and they're like, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
funny because I'm
Well,
out to plants, and they're like,
and that's, a bigger part of my work, because like for so many years I was doing my own like soul work of like clarifying, okay, what is my very odd spirit trying to do in the world? And like what is my unique signature, and tuning into my witchiness and all that sort of stuff. But then I realized at a certain point that when I started opening up into the ancestral work, I was like, there are some ancestors here who are not on board. I have a very large Puritan population. Like, and then there was like some crunchiness there. And so the lineage healing process of like connecting further back beyond the Puritanism, and I have some very witchy people back there, and they were like, we've been waiting to be able to voice our values again, and waiting to address the ones that needed some healing around these issues. And so part of the healing work is to connect with those well guides, and then do some healing for the ones who are a little bit like not quite on board yet. and it really, in my own personal path, it let my soul sort of like land a little bit deeper, because I wasn't, navigating this field that was sort of interfering with that unique soul signature being expressed. So, yeah, yeah. So it's personal healing, and, it has these collective effects too. So, yeah.
that is, thank you. That's brilliant. So if I have someone who's Native American showing up in your class, or somebody who's Jewish, or somebody who's queer, or somebody who's trans, we're all doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like
Mm-hmm.
universal ancestor work that we need to be doing. And I just wanted to say that because like we're gonna get a mix of people.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
which is like,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's the part of
Yeah.
America that is like, yes, we need this.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think it's beautiful when there's more people who are resourced in that way coming together and being able to meet each other in authentic ways. There again, there's just healing for ourselves, but also healing on a more communal aspect too. So, mhm. Yeah.
And I also wanted to mention there's with the Guy and Fairy Congress, there's a big community element of the work that we do. So we're doing the workshop on July 18th. That will be recorded. Um, we do have a recording of the hybridity class, like Ancestor Hybrid. We do have that recording, and that was really good. That was like, oh, we need to. Summer, you're you're hired. And so then we've got the four-part series. Could you say something um, more about the four-part series?
Yeah, so the first part is really a kind of initiating a little bit of that healing process, working with allies to begin healing whatever inherited burdens are there, that are creating barriers specifically for our own embodying and manifesting our soul gifts. So kind of tuning in to what may need to be healed there to support our own unique path. So that's kind of the first part. And then the second part is more about tuning into the ancestors as resources of wisdom and resilience, and like adaptive strategies and things like that, while we're in this, you know, period of navigating whatever changes personally or collectively again, tuning in more to their wisdom around change. And then the third part kind of brings in that connection to place. And, our ancestors, some of the older ones, they had beautiful practices around, how to be in reciprocity in relationship to place, how to honor the sacred waters, how to, be in relationship with the beyond human, all of that sort of stuff. So we'll be focusing a little bit more on those practices in the third part. And then the fourth part is just kind of like a general sort of like looking at all of those dimensions of wisdom of the ancestors. What kind of blessing or guidance or future direction do they really want to offer us, so that, again, we can navigate change, we can express our soul gifts, and we can have ongoing relationships with them. So yeah, that's kind of the flow of the series.
Thank you. That's brilliant. And then what I wanted to, and then we're going to be doing ancestral lineage healing circles, maybe on a monthly level. So you'll be able to continue the community aspect and get practice, because this is, we're not tourists here. We're actually we're doing the work.
Yeah, and it's ongoing. I mean, to know that we have this ongoing resource that, and I, even myself, I feel like my work with my ancestors is so much deeper when I'm doing it in a group or when I'm having the space held by another practitioner. Like, you can go off and do it on your own and go and do your own meditational practice with them. That's beautiful, and I highly encourage that. But there's something about being in the field of other people that sort of just like holds it in a more potent way. And I just personally go deeper when I'm in a group or even one-on-one. But yeah.
Beautiful. So I'm putting all the information, descriptions, links in the description or comment section down below. Again, Summer, thank you so much for letting me hire you.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm so excited. I mean, and it's one of the reasons why, it's like, make this financially accessible for folks, because this work is so important. It's what we need to resource ourselves and each other during this time. It's just, we need it. It's good. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, we need it. It's good. Let's do it. We're there. Okay. Summer, thank you so much. And everybody, if you've got questions, reach out. Okay.
Great.
Thank you, everybody. Stop.